Ooh. G'day everybody, Jellie here. Welcome to the very first edition of the Car Info Show. We here at the Car Info Show want to celebrate the last 25 years of Japanese vehicles that have been coming into New Zealand and draw your attention to the coming admission rule, which is going to knock out an estimated 85% of all vehicles that are coming in from Japan for something that doesn't even work. But first, I want to tackle a serious issue, and that's the stigma surrounding New Zealand new versus Japanese import. Now, the popular theory is a New Zealand new vehicle is better than a Japanese import, when the reality is completely the opposite. Think about this, where are New Zealand new cars made? New Zealand stopped making cars 25 or 30 years ago. The Japanese auto industry opened new plants in poorer countries where the hourly rate was much cheaper. Except Japan, where they could only sell Japanese cars to Japanese people that were made in Japan. Make sense? Anyway, I can tell you the Japanese would be f***ed off if they had to go and buy a Japanese car that was made in Korea. Now listen, I lived in Japan for 18 years and I know this. The Japanese are sticklers for details. They're perfectionists. Don't believe me? Ikebana, the Japanese flower arrangement. Japanese gardens. The samurai sword, look at that, the most perfect blade that's ever been made. Food, I miss the food. The bullet train, and the fact that every train is always on time. The latest GTR Godzilla. Sound systems, cameras, geishas, hentai movies. So I'm told. See my point? A Japanese car made in Japan is the real deal, being sold in New Zealand for a steal. And all that's going to change because of the coming admission rule. I'm going to take you through the last 25 years of cars that have been imported into New Zealand. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Hopefully you'll learn something. And hopefully you'll watch the 2011 emission rule petition video. I'm going to share my knowledge with you and show you how the standard of vehicles coming into New Zealand has been raised to the point where we now have the best quality second-hand cars coming into New Zealand from anywhere in the world, and teach you the things that you've always wanted to know, even though you didn't know you wanted to know them. So sign up to YouTube, subscribe to me, and leave your comments in the comments box below. Anyway, to kick off the show, it's news live from Te Aomuru with Wayne Kerr. Good evening everybody. As the emission rule implementation date draws near, the question on everyone's mind seems to be f*** all. This was pointed out recently by the CEO of the IMVIA, David Vincent, in a conversation that was along the lines of, but not exactly, the majority of New Zealanders couldn't care less about what's going to happen in their future. The New Zealand public doesn't care about anything unless it's physically coming down on their heads. Recent studies and general consensus point to David Vincent's comments as being correct. And for those of you who don't know, from the 31st of December 2011, all vehicles entering New Zealand would need to comply with Euro Standard 4. Which is near as makes no difference to the Euro Standard 3. However, news of the pending emission rule has made its way back to Japan, and as a result, a representative of the Used Japanese Motor Vehicle Industry Association has been sent to New Zealand to appear on our show. Everybody please welcome Yamada Haneko.
Thank you for having me.
いや、とんでもないです。山田さん、日本からどんな話があるの？
Everyone is very surprised in Japan.
なぜでしょう?
We don't know why you don't want to buy Japanese car only 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Japanese cars are best car in the world. Ask everybody, safe, reliable, sexy, and low kilometers. You have too many old cars in New Zealand. Why you don't want your better car?
それとてもいい質問でしょう。なぜニュージーはもっといい車が欲しくないの? To help us answer this question, we cross live to our global roving reporter, CJ. CJ, just why is government going to introduce this new admission policy when it's going to cut out the supply of good quality, cheap, low kilometre cars from Japan and force the public to keep their old dungers on the road? Thanks, Wayne Kerr. The government's intention is to clean up the air quality in New Zealand, and it's the general consensus from every single second-hand car dealer in New Zealand that this will have the opposite effect. I personally have spoken with many in the industry, and here is what some had to say.
So you are the buyer. You are not going to be able to buy cars in these price ranges. We're facing these stupid new emission rules, and I don't use the term loosely. It is absolutely ridiculous, it's crazy, and you, the customer, are going to suffer. That car will be banned. Banned, 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 banned.
Another dealer had this to say.
So this is my car yard in central Wanganui. Just thought I'd give you an example of what sort of stock is not going to be able to be brought in next year. Banned. Banned, 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 banned. People are going to hold on to their vehicles for a lot longer. So we're going to find older, clapped out hunks of junk on the road.
The future looks bleak for these dealers who are responsible for trading in those old, crappy cars and getting them off our roads. If there is a lack of supply, Wanker, the public will be forced to keep their old crappy cars on the road. Cars without catalytic converters. Cars that have not been well maintained. Cars with higher kilometres. When the reality is, this may be just another method of government to tax the poor and middle income earners. Al Gore's movie An Inconvenient Truth could possibly be the most factually flawed movie on global warming and climate change ever made.
The fantastically interesting errors in his film. He says that...
Could this be the biggest heist of lower and middle income earners' money by government ever? Next week, we test the emissions of an older vehicle versus a fresh imported vehicle versus the soon-to-be only compliant vehicle in New Zealand, the results of which will shock you. So stay tuned and see you back here next week.